Zaki, so here's the deal. Can you see me?
There you go.
There you go.
Zaki, glad you read safely. Hopefully you're having a falafel platter. The hummus is the Israeli hummus, not the one we get here. Okay, so here's what we need. We need a truthfulness rating from fake news, where the truthfulness index is compiled by the feedback from the viewers. Feedback from the viewers, are you kidding me? This is clearly fake news. Look at Scopes, or look at, what are the sites that tell you if it's true or false?
Snopes, yeah.
What?
Snopes?
Snopes. And what else was there? Snopes. So look at Snopes, look at this, look at that. This is clearly fake news. Come on, that's wrong. So if the algorithm can pick up a couple of text chats like that and calibrate a number like, oh, the first 25 people who read this, 22 said this is fake news. So this gets an F rating. All right, I thought that was a good idea. Thanks, Zahid. Next week, bang it out, send this to us, please. We're going to actually write a letter to the New York Times. Wouldn't that be great if we had something like this? A news agency that routinely checks itself and issues corrections would be rated more highly than one which pumps out news articles with minimal fact-checking and oversight. NewJersey.government, whatever that website is, comes to mind. Okay, that's a great one. Leah, I like yours too. Colleen talked about her most famous nation status. Okay, well, just give me some good ones, because I know there are tons more. I can't go through all of these here. Some really good ones. Okay, so give me a couple of more ways how you can prevent fake news. Things that you wrote. Come on, have a couple of more. How will it pay for platforms, news agencies, not to disseminate fake news? What did you write? You all answered, so.
I think I wrote something like the fact that if a news article or a news station wanted to publish something, then they had to list out their sources, and each time that if they got like a third party to verify that the source was like a correct disseminating of information, and if they could get a tax credit at the end of the year for it, so then it incentivizes them to pay less taxes the more they promote valid information.
Perfect, thank you. It literally in this case pays to be accurate. Now it's an optimization problem, Colleen. So what this means is they'll look at this, what you said, versus if we keep putting out garbage, we'll get 3 times number of people on our website. So you say that's going to be the issue, because it's going to be not as dramatic as it used to be. So you have to think this through. It's an optimization problem. Yeah, Dana.
I thought to create like a rating system with like a machine learning and artificial intelligence that basically every post can.
Can you hear her? A rating system driven by machine learning and artificial intelligence.
Yeah, and everyone posts something and he gets like a score, and this score eventually is being published, and eventually his news, his post will be shown less, because if his score is low, so people will naturally eventually will not read it, will not pay attention to it. So, but if he has high score, so naturally it will be shown more.
Zahi, could you talk to Dana, please? So maybe when he's building the index, this is really huge. If we can, I'm not, as you know, I'm the only guy from India and an engineer who is not a technology guy, as I've said. I should be in a museum. But if you can build this is huge. Look at the University of Michigan. They built a consumer sentiment index in like the 70s. Every month, every newspaper, every website Michigan's Consumer Sentiment Index came out, whatever the numbers. It's quite different from the Consumer Confidence Index. Every month, the University of Michigan index is in the news.
So to develop it, you said?
Develop it, yes. So 1 year in class, 4, 5, 6, 7, I can't remember, years ago, I just gave a class exercise. It was a laundry index. So what I noticed is that you go and talk to your laundry guy. Is he or she seeing an uptick in the number of people getting shirts or dresses, whatever, laundered? In other words, people who are working or looking for work. This is before the online thing happened. Online killed that index. And so I built a weighted average index, and it was just a class exercise. Next thing I know, it's got legs. It's reached the West Coast. It's somebody from Europe is emailing me. Okay, how did you build your laundry index? I'm going, dry cleaning index. If you poke around, you find it somewhere. I'm going, this was just, I write all these great blogs on, recession and inflation and Fisher effect. Nothing happens, and the laundry index just exploded. It's funny how something that can relate, everyone can relate to, ran, that just took off. And even now, I'm getting once or twice emails coming up. Well, what's your laundry index? I'm going, it's gone. Online killed it. Work from home killed it. So anyway, thank you. Any more? One last one? Okay, we're going to power up now. Stay with me. We're doing supply side economics. How many classes we have? This one and 2 more?
One more. The last one is the exam, right?
Okay, so stay with me here. So last time we did the adaptive expectations aggregate supply curve. And we were deriving it, and you all know the assumptions. So here's where we were. Labor demand, labor supply. Did you see the links I sent you on your Canvas site?
Yeah.
Please know the difference between core inflation and overall inflation. Is anybody reading my emails?
Yes.
All right, and so core inflation is overall inflation minus food and fuel. So core inflation is overall inflation minus cost push inflation. Food and fuel is cost push inflation. That's why the Fed looks at core inflation, because core is everything minus cost push. That means core is what the Fed can control. The Fed can control demand pull inflation, not cost push. And remember, there's no cure for cost push. Hence, Jay Powell keeps talking about core inflation, because that's the demand pull inflation. That's all in the last email I sent you.
Does that also include commodities or just food and fuel?
Food and fuel is subtract, because that's exogenous. Commodities, demand pull, nickel, rubber, oil, that's all demand pull. Here we are, W0, P0, it's 12 divided by 2, that was 6. Initial real wage was 6. You seen this last time? W plus 12 divided by 2. That's 6 market baskets, it's in real terms. And then we did, This is happening in the 70s when the world is going crazy. Here we had 15 over 2. And so W1 over P0. Workers think they're better off. Why is that so?
Is there any higher rate?
Yeah.
They don't see the price increase?
They don't see the price increase. So they only, Solomon, they only see the nominal wage, which is the paycheck. So they saw 12 going to 15, and they're thinking, hey, let's do more overtime. Let me join my wife in the workforce. Did you notice? Langdana is a liberated, progressive. Hope you ladies took notice. Thank you. And so workers think they're here, hey, I went from 12 to 15. But this was in the era of stagflation. I'm going to show you Paradigm Shift 2 and Jimmy Carter and Yom Kippur and all that today. But the reality is there's asymmetric information. So the reality is employers know they are here because employers see both pieces of information. I've conveniently drawn them over each other, so it's just N1. This is N0. And I'm kind of drawing it down here. Should be above, doesn't make any difference. And N0, Y0, N1, Y1. So we have the YY reflector here. So we got last time, we have this word here, py space, and the first one was p0 equal to 2, this is y0, and then we have p1 equal to 5, and because of asymmetric information, we got y1. This is where we were last time, and when we ended class. So according to these people, the expectations people, this is expectations augmented aggregate supply curve. Any questions? And it's driven by asymmetric information, which is employers see both pieces of information, capital W and P in the current period. Workers only see one piece of information, their paychecks. So any questions before we power up and go to, my question was, how long can this go on? Yeah.
Does the time frame between when the workers think they're getting more and when they catch up gotten shorter now with information and news and everything?
Perfect. Her question was, what's the time frame between this and when they catch on and realize that wait a minute here. So after a few years of this, conversation at home is, you know what? When the paycheck went from 12 to 15, I slept out and worked overtime, and I joined you at work. But at the end of the day, we were better off. Inflation went up a lot more. Thinking back, it went from 2 to 5. Sorry, this one is P1 over, this is W1, this is 15 over 5, this is 3, this is W1 over P1. And so inflation went up more than double. So I don't know about this. And so here we are.
Oh, Professor.
Just a second. Overtime, workers catch on. Real wage little w actually fell from 6 to 3. A huge point. Here now, listen carefully, it's getting to be 1980. We've gone through stagflation, which I'm going to show you today. It's not good. Inflation's been running like 15, 17, 19% inflation. It's now 8.5. Yesterday. It's going to go up over 10. 15, 19, 20%. Unemployment, 12, 13, 15%. That's what stagflation was. And during that time, the OPEC countries who were embargoing oil sent all the oil money back here. Even when you went stagflation, we got a capital inflow. If you can imagine that. So I'm showing you all that today. But so here we are, and so now, again, when the central bank, government plans to deploy similar fiscal and monetary policies again, similar fiscal monetary policies again. Yet is a good word, yet. Once again, what happens now? Mitchell, after this I'll take your question. Finish the sentence for me.
Nothing happens.
So you tell me what you're thinking. So here you are a worker, you are a labor union, you're saying one more time, they're doing G, they're doing M, like they did up to 6 months ago, like they did a year ago, and you are now responsible for 120,000 workers. What's going through your mind?
It's not gonna change anything, they've done it already.
Yeah, click on him. So what are you going, in your negotiations, what are you going to ask for? Let me give you some more hints. Powerful, forward-looking. Unions, and today the American unions have been emasculated over the last 20, 30 years because inflation has never been a problem in our country. European unions are very powerful. IG Metall, German, French unions. And so, powerful, forward-looking unions. Let's stop there. What is forward-looking union? What is forward-looking? What is forward-looking? Did you hear him? Anticipating future inflation. Click on him. What is he saying? Talk macro to me. What?
The yield curve.
Pooja, talk macro to me. I said talk macro to me, Pooja goes. I like your answers, by the way, Pooja. I forget what it was, but I got a chuckle. What was it? You're running out from class, you're heading from class. What was it? What was your 51-foot ladder?
Oh, I don't remember.
But anyway, come on, guys. What are they looking at? For forward-looking unions, click on the Fisher effect. Who said that? Megan, the Fisher effect. They're deploying the Fisher effect. That's what all these people are saying, right? Whenever in your life you look at forward rates, in the future, always put this in your mind, and you will be the only person in the room. If you're not, let me know. If you are, let me know. Send me an email or text. So they're looking at these are unions looking at the Fisher effect. What's the long end doing? If the long end is saying, hey, 11% inflation is coming, these guys are going to negotiate for a 15% increase in salary. Because remember, unions are negotiating long-term contracts for the next 2 years, 3 years, 5 years. So they're saying, hey, we are not being just tough for the sake of being tough. Fisher effect, look at the yield curve. Treasuries are telling us 15% inflation is coming. So they'll ask for 18%, negotiate down to 15. And so forward-looking unions will now negotiate to at least, because remember, the more the inflation, the more powerful get the unions to at least keep the real wage the same. Little w, the same as before. So let's come up here. So what will unions ask for now? How much should they negotiate for now? And so this time, unions will anticipate, come on, finish the sentence for me. Effects 10 of Neil. It's Neil, right?
Inflation?
Come on.
Inflation?
Fisher.
Everything is not Fisher. You're going through the airport, the first name, last name, Fisher effect. Are you kidding me?
FIS.
Monetary policies. And now negotiate for W1 equal to how much? Come on.
30?
Yes, who said that? Mitya?
30?
Leah, thank you. W1 equals to 30. 30. So that, come on Leah, why 30?
So that the equals 6.
Real wage stays the same?
Exactly. And so here we are, they are now going to negotiate for 30. It's a very complex mathematical set of papers that these physicists, scientists came up with this model based on asymmetric signal noise ratios from electrical engineering, and they said information has become symmetric. So right in here, information finally has become symmetric. So it's the paradigm is about to change. So now let's see what happens. So there's no information asymmetry. Basically, are you with me, folks? We ran it into the ground. We did MNG over and over and over again, faster and faster again. Exogenous shocks, oil shocks, P1, P2, P7, P8, P9. The thing broke down. We ran it into the ground. Mom and Pop America said, "The heck with this. We're getting taken here. Right? Inflation is rising faster than these paltry salary increases. What the heck is that? No, we're going to now push for 15% salary increase." So 30 here. Now let's see what happens. So prices go. So now what you have, prices go to P1, What happens in this world? The negotiating for 30. Tell me what happens in the labor market. So here we are. So finally, 30 over 5. Oh, sorry. Finally, over 5, that's equal to 6. So here we are, basically, we are back to where we were. We are now negotiating for 30. Real wage is back to 6. So what happens to the aggregate supply curve? So it's now, yes, thank you, Dave. It's 1980. Ronald Reagan has come into office. Information has become symmetric. Let's see what's about to happen. Board is breaking down today. Okay, so now plotting P1 equals to 5 and Y1 equals, so what happens to output now? So let's write down before that. So now with real wage again at 6. Over 5. What happens to employment, folks? Stays the same. Employment again at N0. The same as before, same as originally. Come on, Jessica. What happens to output?
Yeah, it goes down
To where?
back to,
Y0. Output back to Y0. And so plotting P1 Y0 and joining to P0 Y0. Here we are, folks. We get the rational expectations. This is 4 Nobel Prizes came out of this thing, by the way. Look at the rational expectations aggregate supply curve, which is, this is going to be the heart, the motherboard of the supply siders. Aggregate supply curve. Connie, tell me what it looks like. So basically, yeah, whatever the number is, 5, 6, whatever. And here we are, folks. And so by 1980, here we have the rational expectations aggregate supply curve. And this is also known as the new classical, because it looks like the old classical, it's a vertical line. Also, the new classical. Sorry. So it's a vertical line. The Keynesian story is over. The country is about to switch paradigms. Reagan is in office who, within 6 months, he buys into this model. I'm going to show you paradigm shift number 2, but before that, let's go and see what the supply side is. They look like the classical guys. It's a vertical curve, and we will see the big difference is they have a way to move the curve. The classical people just looked at it and said, natural rate, can't do a thing about it. Remember that? There was no policy. These guys, I'm going to show us how to move it. That's the huge difference. So it's like a classical 2.0, if you will. Questions, comments?
Why weren't the monetary and fiscal policies breaking? Because the inflation was so.
So basically, thank you. So and this looks like the old Keynesian story, right? So basically, these guys said, look, from the 50s, 60s, and early 70s, the Keynesian model was great. The Phillips curve worked. And these guys said, we had a Keynesian curve that looked like that, but the reason it looked like that was because of asymmetric information, because in our world, with Hoover's wage floors, remember, we got that word, but the wage floors were only in the Great Depression, then they were gone. So how do you explain this curve when the wage floors were gone? So they said, we are showing you how you guys were look like Keynesians for all these years, but in stagflation, when you kept pressing the button too fast, system jammed up. You know, it's your garage door. You keep pressing open, close, open, close, open, close, open, close. It'll just kind of stand there and freak out. So, ran it into the ground. Yeah, Dave.
How realistic is this model? Because this is with the assumption that the union's demands are accepted by the.
Yeah. So please understand. So, first of all, I'm great at picking up signals. Dave is a Keynesian. So, obviously. And so in the old days, when I gave you the final exam, I have matured. I'm calmer now. But back in the day, I would say, you tell me what you are. I'm not going to tell you this model is better than that model. So I want you to write on the cover of your blue book whether you're a Keynesian or a supply-sider before looking at the questions in the exam. Because then you will go, this one's much easier than the Keynesian way. I'm a Keynesian, you know? And so that's when that's when we had two models, identification problem. Then the world kept changing. And suddenly after 9/11, we had to be Keynesians. George W. Bush, the early George macro policy was outstanding. You know, he got Greg Mankiw, who was a high priest. We had to go Keynesian. After COVID, after subprime, we had to go Keynesian. Now, as modern monetary theory is going out the window, supply-siders are coming back in. So in the final exam, I'm again going to leave it up to you, but not pinning you down. Now, having said that, how realistic is this? Wait, so this will look at this once again. So once again, percentage change in P is equal to percentage change in capital W. Right there, this looks like the old classical assumption. One more time, we are back. And it is realistic in the sense that you guys, if inflation is 8% and you work for BMS, and you tell Bristol Myers Squibb, hey, cost of living increase should be at least 8.5% like today, or I'm going to Merck or Johnson & Johnson, you're going to get it. So this story for medium-skilled, high-skilled, New Jersey, New York, for America, for Western Europe works. In emerging economies, this story is tough to work. Inflation's 8% and workers go, I want 8%, get out of here. You're going to get 2% because I got so much more excess labor. So it works. What happened is few months ago, last year, when John Deere, what did John Deere do? Does anyone remember? Last fall?
There was a strike, worker strike.
Laura, keep going.
There was a worker strike.
And then what happened?
Didn't they bring in scabs?
Yeah, but macroeconomics.
Oh.
Oh, yeah, he pushed him to the ground and then he clubbed him with an empty soda bottle. So what happened in the John Deere thing was that they matched the W to inflation. So inflation was going up and they were striking because their real wages were falling. John Deere broke ranks and said, fine. We're going to give you a salary increase to match it to expected inflation. And I remember we were doing macro last fall and there was consternation in classes. What does this look like? They said, information is becoming symmetric. I said, yes. And wait and see. It's a game. You remember game theory? We did Kono-Nash. Remember that? So now everybody has to match this. You know, we had this meeting this morning. Let's not do the rankings. And I said, that's fine, but it's a game theoretic thing. Everyone has to agree to not do the rankings and not get into that ranking mess. Because even if one school gets into the ranking mess, that's not a Kono-Nash equilibrium. You know, it's like boycott Russia. Well, doesn't work if everyone doesn't boycott Russia. And so became symmetric. And now other companies are matching P to W, W to P. You getting this? Last four, hang on just a second. And so what's the implication for Biden? As the companies are matching their W1 to P1, what is the implication for Biden? Wow, no, to talk macro. Here's Biden's aggregate supply curve.
Less taxes.
What do you say?
Less corporate taxes.
Yeah. What is happening to the aggregate supply curve as suddenly and quietly and insidiously, W1 is matching P1. Yes, Dan. What does that mean? Why is that? If Biden had a massive macro engine room, what would that mean to him? GNM?
Useless.
That whole stimulus plan? Out the window. GNM will not change why. I'm going to take you there. God bless him. Poor guy's got enough on his plate. Can you imagine me going, Mr. Biden? Yes, you got Putin to worry about, but so, you, Langdana, out of here. When my dad brought me peanut butter sandwiches working in... Yes, I can take that story one more time. Okay. So here we are. Here we go. It's morning in America. Ronald Reagan's about to come. And we are back to being vertical. So we went from classical to Keynesian. And something happened. I'm going to show you stagflation. Back here. Then comes 9/11, COVID, And today, we will see. One comment I want to make. When this happens, inflation gets baked into our psyche. It's 8.5%. You're looking in the future, it's going to be 11%. It's baked in. So now W1 is going to go higher, W2 is going to go higher. So now I'm the employer, you guys are negotiating for W1. What do I do today? Because I'm paying Megan more. Because she's saying, Langdana, I'm working for you for 3 years. I'm seeing 10% inflation, so I want that's just the basic. 10% every year, just to keep my real wages the same. So we are signing the contract today. What do I do?
Raise prices.
Raise prices. I liked your cycle of one comment, by the way. Sarah.
I don't remember what I said.
It was good.
Okay.
Something about your taxes and
Oh,
tax
the
bill.
51-foot ladder.
Yeah, a 41-foot ladder. And so basically I raise prices today. Yes, no, to pay for that. What does that do to W1 and what happens next? There's a wage price spiral. So now I'm pushing inflation up more. And so now Leah's gonna come to Greg and say, it's 15%. And so Greg's gonna raise the price. Now, what it's gonna go and to Nick. And so P3, P4, P5. This baby's, the genie's out of the bottle. So you had a question, then I'll go back to
I guess
the
the-
question still there?
Okay, so we were talking about how the curve will shift from vertical to Keynesian model, but how does it reconcile in the past like 10 or 15 years that wages haven't, W1 has not equaled, like the percentage change in P has not equaled the percentage change in W? Because like, if you look at the inflation rate over the past 10 or 15 years, the wage increase is far below that.
Oh, so you're talking last 10 or 15 years? Oh.
Maybe, yeah.
Oh,
So that's,
yeah,
okay.
Nick,
So then to bounce off of Dev's comment, like, what if they don't accept that change in W? If you say inflation was 8%, I need an 8% raise, and they say we're only gonna give you 3.
so you're in this one here?
So we're still in the Keynesian
remember-
model?
So, okay, so he's said a lot of stuff right now. So please understand, but there's a good stuff. Yes, you're right, last 10 years, P and W were out of sync. Because we went in the Keynesian
Okay.
framework. In the Keynesian framework, the percentage change in P does not equal percentage change in W. That's the problem with macro. Like in physics, remember, we had 3 equations of motion. The ball would roll down the hill in 1922, in 2022, at the same route. Remember that, right? Not so in macro. So, in the supply side model, you said, no, I'm not gonna give you 30, W1. Boop, you're going from Bristol-Myers Squibb to Merck. In that environment. It's that whole ecosystem that drives your decisions.
This example is based on unionized labor.
No,
That's-
well, okay, let me stop you there. Then when I mentioned unionized labor, that was just an example to tell you how we are forward-looking. But it could be supply contracts. You know, you're looking for aluminum sheeting, you're looking for concrete. There was just an example. So anybody who's forward-looking, contracting for futures, any kind of futures, you're adding in inflation.
Understood.
See, and that's the thing. This model is so abstract, as Dave said, that Milton Friedman many years ago said, the story behind the model isn't the important thing, it's how effective the model is to deploy macro policy. So, to answer Sarah's question, those 4 or 5 people who won Nobel Prizes, one of them used the wage contracts, one of them used supply contracts, precious metals, commodity contracts. So they used different mechanisms to show us how, when you're looking forward, you're contracting and you're going, So that was one of the examples.
My question was like this wage differential, right? Like you said that initially workers get a higher wage and then they realize that the inflation has gone. But is it not like generally workers get increased wage after after a long time?
In India, in Argentina, in Brazil, that's a different story. Not in this world, with inflation galloping ahead. So right now, workers are going to be pushing for salary increases, especially when John Deere's done it, and Amazon's doing it, and McDonnell Douglas is doing it, McDonald's is doing it. Ladies, what a gentleman, thank you.
Yeah, I just wanted to support what you say, that I feel that in my industry, that in the last 6 months, wages have gone up, like dramatically. I didn't even understand where it came from. Every time recruiters are calling, I'm hearing like different numbers. And it was, I don't know, it's really surprising. Amazon increased their base salary like dramatically, also because they are known for having like low salary base. Amazon is a lot of bonuses, so they also increased their base salary. I just wanted to ask.
Just want to jump in here. So what's been happening last 8 months? You guys are switching jobs,
Yeah.
and every time you switch jobs, it's 25%, 30% salary increase. You know, I mean, so you're having W1, W7, W9, and you're just hopping onto that train. More power to you.
And also, like I'm working in Wells Fargo, and they mentioned that the CTO that they know that they need to increase their wages, and the problem is that they don't even find recruiters to work for them to get new employees. I mean, so they are short. I mean, they don't know even how to fill the gap now. I'm just wondering what will stop it. Like, cause it's like.
Participation rate. So what you have here is that the high skilled labor market is kind of maxed out. So we are like, yeah, that if you're in the Keynesian world. And so participation rate is still low. I sent you an article about retired people who can't afford to be retired. You're going to see participation rate going back up. People who have been living off the stimulus checks or who got used to not working or whatever, working partially, temporarily, are going to go back in. So till that happens, and it will happen soon now that inflation's out of control. Okay, so here we are. Yeah, sorry. Any more? Sorry, Jose.
No, I just wanted to make a comment because so you gave the example of basically the unions that are able to push this for
It's one of the mechanisms.
one
One.
of the mechanisms. But wouldn't the ESG policy or the ESG trend that we have in society actually be doing this, pushing it towards vertical? Because after all, ESG is about social impact, and I think that may be behind trying to get the salaries.
So, Jose, God bless you. Such a sweet man. Do you see the suits sitting down in their penthouse and thinking, inflation is 8.5%, but Jose, he's only getting 6%. We need to deploy and be socially and responsible. And ESG is like the thing. And turn off the lights. You not use power electricity. Turn off the lights. Is that recyclable? If not, no, I don't. Can you imagine this real conversation happening? Jose, it's not happening. God bless you. And so the whole ESG thing, seriously, when I talk to ESG people, I ask them, where is the Adam Smith in ESG? If there is no Adam Smith in ESG, this is a feel-good thing. This is like all the people who go, I'm environmentally so conscious, I care, I recycle, all the little plastic popcorn things that come in. I drive to Pennsylvania, and then in the winter, they turn the temperature up to 74 degrees and they're wearing shorts and t-shirts at home. And I'm going, hello. So I'm cynical because I've seen it. If there is no Adam Smith in ESG, Jose, it's not happening. And I don't see the Adam Smith. People are throwing billions into ESG. It's the big hot button thing. Let's see where it is 2 years from now when the recession hits us. Sorry, I'm not very big on that one because I've seen the dark side. Have I seen the dark side?
I do think that part of the ESG is the implementation of the ESG, so I do think that it has some credibility if it's executed properly. Because the idea is like when Volkswagen had a scandal on their gas, whatever that was, like the idea is that like Goldman and JP Morgan would send consultants to help them fix the problem to get their ratings up. But that's the whole problem. Like there's no regulation on that part of it. So
Exactly.
it's
It has to pay them.
greenwashing until it's implemented.
Yeah. It's like Sarbanes-Oxley, like the example I gave in Sarbanes-Oxley, And you have mom and pop America asking, is this Sarbanes-Oxley compliant? And you go, yes it is, and they go, okay. And of course you're going chuckle, 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 And so that's the problem. Okay, so here we are, it's a vertical aggregate supply curve. I'm going to show you supply side economics. How do you shift this baby to the right? That's the big difference between supply siders and the old classical guys who said, leave it alone, it's natural rate. So stay with me, I'm going to set up the supply side model. Maximum power now. Very controversial, by the way, this thing. Some of you will love it, some of you will not like it. There's no ambivalence here with the supply side model.
Stability of, you guys, you had a question?
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. It was
Thank
gonna
you.
be a
I saw
comment.
her hand and you go.
I know, it was more of a comment. CVS released their ESG report today.
Sorry, who did?
CVS. So they're investing $3 billion from here to 2030 on ESG. And, of course, their main, unfortunately or fortunately, their ESG entire report is centered around the shareholder profit by 2030, and they did disclose that publicly in the report. So it's on Bloomberg Newsweek. Today's episode, if you look in the podcast, it's on there today, and they detail how ESG is in line with shareholder equity. So you're not wrong.
So what is the point, what is the main point here?
Their CVS ESG report
Yeah.
is centered around shareholder equity for the next 10
Okay,
years.
so again, let's click on shareholder. So remember, when I did my finance many years ago, what was the goal? To maximize shareholder wealth. So here I am thinking, that's such a narrow definition many years ago. What about the social implications? How do you measure those? And what are the social costs? You know, I'll never forget in my trade class, quick story, we were talking about child labor. Do you want ESG? I'll give you ESG. We're talking about child labor and in foreign countries. It's a trade class. And I said, you know, we cannot apply our own metric to other countries. So for example, in Thailand, there was a Reebok, Nike, somebody, facility making sweatshirts, something. So we shut it down. Why? Because in Thailand, in that factory, the women were underage, they were too young. And so we shut down that whole huge facility. So The Economist magazine sent a bunch of reporters to find out what happened to those women. And it's on my website, my international trade website somewhere. So they tracked those women down. What do you think happened to them when they had to be let go because they were underage in these facilities?
Were they trafficked?
They were not trafficked, but they were trafficking. They were back to prostitution. And so the economists, the reporters asked them, and so they said, what was wrong with being in a sweatshop? Why do you people in the West have a negative connotation with a sweatshop? For us, sweat, working, that's good. We were happy. We wanted our daughters and our kids to go to school someday. You know, that was the way out. We were making good money. We were happy. And now we are back to where we were, in prostitution. And so we don't understand because we wanted that. And so that's the tragedy and the irony of having one set of metrics for a rich country and superimposing that on a poor country. When I was a kid growing up in India, I remember, you know, my mom ran a hospital. And so there were people, the gardener and all these people working in the hospital. And I remember chatting with them, I would hang with them. And they said, yeah, my son got into the Wrangler was making jeans somewhere on the outskirts of Mumbai many years ago. Got a job in the Wrangler factory. And I said, oh, is that a big deal? He said, oh, yeah. The only reason we got it was we had connections. You know, he knew somebody who knew somebody to give him a job in the Wrangler factory. As a kid, I was going, wow, big deal, must be a big deal. And so I did the story in class, and I was wrapped. The class was over, I was packing up, and there was a lady sitting somewhere there. She was crying, tears, as in salt water, large droplets. So Langdana doesn't know what to do in these situations. So I said, you know, Odalis, that was her name, what's wrong? Did I say something? She said, no, sniff, sniff, snort, honk, blowing her nose. I just got back from Brazil, where I shut down. I'm in compliance, she said. She was in compliance for making textiles, some clothing, I forget. I shut down a factory because they had underage boys in Brazil. And she was crying, and I said, okay, so I didn't think about what would happen to them. And I said, well, I hope they're okay, she said, sniff, sniff. I said, no, I'm going to be blunt with you, they're not okay. Brazil, young boys, they go to the gangs. It was in a really bad Sao Paulo suburbs. So they went back into the gangs. So that's what you did. Odalis, you can't, that's the tragedy of global trade, of the planet. 60% of kids on the planet are working. 60% of little children on the planet are working. And they progress upwards. Sometimes it's a painful thing for us to impose our metrics on them. So I said, yeah, they went back to the gangs. You know, that's the tragedy. Okay, let's do supply side economics. Here we are. Here we go. Here's the labor market. Say with me now. Labor demand, labor supply, W0 over P0, N0. It's the labor market. And earlier we had labor demand is some function of W over P. So we had labor demand looking like this, W over P and N. And it was a negative function. So this is what we had as a negative function means as W over P decreased, labor demand would increase. So it's like a negative opposite relationship. So it goes downward sloping. So the supply siders walk this up. So the action is in the labor market. Now, in the supply side model, very controversial, some of you will not like this. Labor demand is some function of W over P, so it's a negative relationship, but also corporate taxes, let's call it business taxes. Taxes show up here. Here we go, business taxes. And long-term macro outlook. Look at this, it's forward-looking. So suddenly the labor demand function is really, it's woken up. It's very sophisticated. It's not just real wage goes down, labor demand goes up, you know, negatively related like it used to be. Now there are two more guys. So explain to me, what is corporate taxes doing in labor demand? Labor demand is demand by companies for you.
It's how much available money they have to spend in general.
So how will that affect labor demand?
If they have higher taxes, they can't hire as many employees theoretically.
Okay, so please understand that it's a negative relationship. So listen very, very carefully now. This is a deep click comment that most supply siders don't get. In the supply side model, tax cuts are treated as temporary. So when you give tax cuts in this story here, this is really important. There's a sense here that they're going to be taken away. The tax cuts are only there for a short period of time. So what happens is, in this case here, as corporate taxes decrease, labor demand increases. So companies basically say, hey, taxes went from 48% to 22%. Let's quickly go and hire more MBAs, and let's make the most of it and deploy before taxes go back up, because you know they're going to go back up, and typically they go back up. So it's a temporary thing. You cut taxes, labor demand increases. So what happens here? Here we have labor demand, W over P, N, and the whole labor demand curve shifts to the right as business taxes decrease and vice versa. Very, very important. You get this, folks? So companies are going, hey, we went from 38% to 22% thanks to Mr. Trump. Let's quickly go out, make hay while the sun shines, increase market share, profitability, whatever. Long-term macro outlook, what is that? Come on, Solomon.
Expected inflation.
Yeah. Sorry.
Whether there's gonna be growth or recession coming?
So long term, let's say the economy is looking great in the future is looking good. Employers are gonna go, you know what, recovery is coming. Let's hire more MBAs. As macro outlook. So suddenly there's a forward-looking component here. Let's look at labor supply. Earlier, labor supply was some function of W over P. It was like this. W over P, labor supply N. So as real wage went up, supply of labor went up. And now, excuse me, folks. I think this thing deteriorates with all my macro going through. I start breathing in these particles, I think.
Professor Powell Jane had a big bag of different kinds of masks. So we had cloth in '95. She would change them during the lecture. It's very
Oh.
entertaining.
So people go, I think I'm gonna move to an N94 now.
Yes, that's what she did. Then cloth. Yes.
Oh, I'm gonna switch to cloth. What?
I like the cloth ones. They're easy to read.
I guess
But,
there must be something about economics professors and bags of masks.
it's survival. Now you tell me that cloth is better. The semester's almost over, Pooja. All right, much better. Sorry, this is a tough one because this is complex stuff we are doing here. Okay, so labor supply. This is how it was, just simply. Supply goes up as the price goes up, upward sloping, but now in the supply side model, they woke that up too. Supply of labor now is some function of real wage plus income taxes. There you go. And again, there's a forward-looking component too. Long-term macro outlook. So supply siders have really increased the sophistication of the labor market. Okay, so this is positive sign. Tell me about income taxes. Come on, Connie, Jose, Chris, Jason, Solomon.
Also, inverse relationship, the higher the taxes, the lower the supply.
So how does that work? I mean, let's say let's say you cut income taxes.
Now you have more disposable income, so it's more it's more enticing.
So if your income tax goes from 38% to 22%, you're going to go out and work? What's that?
So you'll leave, like, if you have a second job, you'll leave that, because you have more money, wouldn't you?
So what's happening here? Megan is saying, no, I'm going to actually cut back since I got more money. What's going on here? This is a huge discussion we are having.
supplies.
What was she? I mean, Anushri?
Negative, right? Inverse relationship.
Have I said that? Have I said that yet? So that's what we're trying to do. Is it negative? Dan?
Oh, sorry, positive, like same, if income tax is going down, the job supply is also going down.
It's going to go down. So if I say, Anushri, your taxes went from 48% to 22%, you're going to go, hey, that's it for overtime. Hey, forget that evening job. Dan?
Don't people wanna work more so they can spend more in that instance?
Click on Dan. So there are two things going on here. One is something known as the Calcutta rickshaw driver syndrome. So what happened in Calcutta is that the guys who were pulling the rickshaws back in the day, they would stop working the moment they reached the daily target. So they reach the daily target at 2 o'clock, they're done. They pull the rickshaw, they go under it and take a nap. They're done. That's the Calcutta rickshaw driver syndrome, which is, you're done. Or then there is the Dan syndrome, like, hey, wait a minute, you're cutting taxes? I can bang out some more money, I can pack my savings account. What's going on here? Dr. Victoria?
More value.
Yeah, so what do you think is gonna happen if I cut taxes? So basically, what's interesting here, one more time folks, the tax cut is temporary. You have to understand this. And it is true. Remember, this is macro where you are mimicking reality. So you are saying, we got this tax cut. You know what? The next guy coming, whoever it is going to raise taxes. So let's make hay while the sun shines. I'm going to go out and do overtime. I'm going to do that other job. Then when the taxes go up, I'm going to cut back a bit. So Megan, what you're going to do is say, I'm going to bang out the work now. Then when taxes are going up, I'm going to relax. So I'm going to schlep out there. I've got income tax going down from 38% to 22%. I'm joining my wife on the work. I'm schlepping out on the turnpike. And now I can afford to hire somebody to watch the kids. I don't have to be Mr. Parent. I cannot have to be at home and cook meals and all. I can schlep out there and join my wife. Hire an au pair. Isn't that what they're called? Those people, there you go. Very controversial. So that's what's supposed to happen. So participation rate is going to go up. So yeah, Sarah.
So that's what I was just about to ask about. So like, I would challenge that to say, my understanding of the labor supply is that the primary motivation for people going to work is because they have bills to pay, not
Wow.
necessarily income
This
taxes.
is scary. This conversation is giving me chills.
So, is it true that after the 2017 Tax and Jobs Cuts Act passed by the previous administration, did the labor
Salt water
force,
is coming out.
did the labor force participation
No.
rate increase?
No, but that whole Trump tax cuts backfired. It blew up. It did not work. I'm taking you there.
But it was
So-
highly publicized that all
Of
these
course
tax
it
rates
was.
went down.
Oh my God. And I don't mean to step on toes, but poor Trump's base, these guys who got maybe $25 tax cuts, they were running around going, oh, tax cuts. No, there was a tax cut for billionaires. And it misfired. You're right. I'm going to take you there because C-bar was low. Everyone wants to be a Reagan. Everyone cannot be a Reagan. Reagan got a sense of optimism out there. After Carter, that was not hard. Because poor Jimmy was just, I told you, very, very despondent. Remember, I played his video in the tape and I almost went off the road. And so, optimism, shining city on the hill, morning in America, the unifier, tear down the wall, Mr. Gorbachev. The other guy, we're going to build a wall, Mexico's going to pay for it. Very different. I want to take you there. But very good point. But you're right. She's saying going to work has to do with just fundamental existence. And I'll never forget when I did this story in class many years ago, how if you cut income taxes, let me write this down, and then we'll have a break. So basically, keep in mind here a crucial assumption. You have to know this because you will be the only person in the room who will get this, is that the tax cuts are treated as temporary. Tax cuts, personal plus business, are treated as temporary. It's like a sale. That's why we have sales. You know, one day only. Why do we have one day only? Because it forces you to act, right? If it was a sale all the time, well, I'll work, I won't work. If it's like, and I'm gonna cut taxes are low now, I'm gonna schlep out there, and I'm gonna do more work now, next 2 years, before the next guy gets in the White House and raises taxes. Yes, no? So that's why it's like a sale, if you will. So, treat it as temporary, income taxes go down, you put in more labor, and if taxes go up, you say, oh, heck with this, what's the point? I was speaking to my chairman, and I said, many years ago, and I said, Ivan, you want to teach another course in the executive MBA program because you get paid more? And he said, why? I said, because you get paid more. I said, no, I don't. He said, no, you do. I said, no, I don't. I said, Ivan. He said, no, Farouk. I go home and my wife looks at my pay stub and says, you're schlepping out on Friday mornings? You're schlepping out on Sundays? Why? I don't see anything here. Because he said, oh, Uncle Sam takes it. There's no point. I'm cutting back labor supply. There's no point. It's a disincentive. Taxes are so high. So I was doing this in class some years ago, and there was a lady called Faith in my class sitting in this room where Anushri is. She just exploded. She was the president of a large nursing company. Even now today, she's on the board of the nursing school. She just went ballistic. She said, what nonsense, Farouk. Absolute Reagan, tax cuts? Nonsense. Sarah, do you know Faith? Have you talked to her?
I'd like to.
And so she said, I had 2 young daughters. It was stagflation, the era after stagflation. Inflation had eaten everything away. I wanted my daughters to go to college. We needed to build up our savings. I had to schlep out there. I couldn't care less what the tax was. All this stuff that suddenly women exploded into the workforce, participation rate went up, which it did. Women burst into the workforce, which they did. Fine, but we did it because we had to. None of us was looking at the tax rate. We had to put food on the table. My kids needed to go to college. Couldn't make it on one salary. So, jumped on me, just took me down. Langdana was wiped out. That one, long-term macro outlook, the higher the macro outlook. So let's pick up, let's stop now, let's take 15 minutes. I'm going to show you this diagram, then we put it all together.